I'm Brian Wilson alongside Larry O'Connor.
Joining us right now, Raymond Arroyo, EWTN News Managing Editor. He's also author of the new children's book, Will Wilder, The Relic of Perilous Falls. That sounds interesting. You can get that over at RaymondArroyo.com. Raymond, thanks for joining us, sort of at a moment's notice, because we had breaking news this morning coming out of the Vatican. Pope Francis issues a major document with regard to... Well, see, now here, I don't even want to say what it's about because
I know.
I've learned my lesson.
You know how I feel. I read all 256 pages of this monster. But I'm here to do a book report for you guys.
Please do.
So
help us out.
Because I can tell you what the Associated Press says, all right? And see, this is my thing. I've learned my lesson. Before I jump to conclusions with the mainstream media, we get Raymond Arroyo on. The Associated Press headline is, Pope insists conscience, not rules, must guide the faithful. This is not the Catholic Church I know.
Well, I won't say the AP is totally wrong, but they're partially wrong. Here's the upshot of this. First of all, let me put this in context. This is not the type of document that changes doctrine, okay? This is an apostolic exhortation. What that means is after 2 years of very public discussions among the bishops and cardinals over the last 2 years in Rome, the Pope is declaring, this is what I feel needs teaching at this moment about the family. So he's clarifying pastorally what needs to be done. It is a long pastoral dissertation on the family. It celebrates the best parts of it. But along the way, he accomplishes a few things, okay, and makes some things clear. One of them, and everybody has a reason to be unhappy about this document, okay? All sides are going to be unhappy. He maintains the Church's ban on contraception, artificial contraception. He says homosexual unions cannot be equated in any way with traditional marriage. He says they cannot create life, and therefore they cannot be held on the same plane. Then he goes and wades into what everyone was waiting for, and that is, can divorced and remarried Catholics receive communion without an annulment? And the answer, if you read between the lines here, and really this thing should be called the tale of the footnote, because in a footnote, he suggests that under certain circumstances, a priest can make the determination that a couple or an individual who is in a second marriage without an annulment can return to the sacraments in some way. And I'll read you the footnote if you want it. It's real fast. He says, in certain cases, this can include the help of the sacraments. Hence, I want to remind priests that the confessional must not be a torture chamber, but rather an encounter with the Lord's mercy. And I would point out that the Eucharist is not a prize for the perfect, but a powerful medicine and nourishment for the weak. Now, a lot of canon lawyers and bishops I've been talking to in England, in Rome, and in the United States this morning are not happy with this.
I would think not. And by the way, that footnote, I believe, refers to this statement, which I think more people will read this than the footnote, Raymond. Mm-hmm. It can no longer simply be said that all those in any irregular situations are living in a state of mortal sin and are deprived of sanctifying grace. That's the sentence that basically says you may not be married in the Church's eye, but that doesn't mean you can't receive communion.
Right. Well, you see, and this is the whole question here. What does this actually mean? And in the minds of some of the canon lawyers I've been talking to, look, I know people who've spent years, applying to a tribunal in a diocese trying to get an annulment from their first marriage. Does this mean annulments aren't necessary? You can just go to your parish priest? We don't know. But you notice in that quote you read, Larry, he refers to irregular relationships.
Yeah, irregular situations.
Yeah, that's pretty wide. That's pretty wide-reaching, isn't it?
Right, but it's in parentheses. I mean, he has them in quotes. Irregular situations, almost so-called irregular situations is how he almost refers to it. There is no talk here of adultery, no talk here of sinful situations or relationships. That talk is totally done away with. And so the question is, are we saying adultery, if you really love someone and if you're growing spiritually through this new relationship, does that mean it's not objectively sinful? That's the big question for the Church, for the bishops, for these parish priests, and for the Pope. But this document is going to cause much more. My guess is it's going to open up many, many more debates, and the war continues. Nothing is settled here.
The line is, a pastor cannot feel it is enough to simply apply moral laws to those living in, quote, irregular situations as if they were stones to throw at people's lives. And then I guess this refers then when an irregular situation would be like single parents, gay people, unmarried straight couples who are living together? Those are all sort of irregular situations, are they not?
Well, one would assume. I mean, you don't. I've had so many emails and tweets and things coming in this morning, and people are asking. Jesus said, go and sin no more. What does this mean? And my take is, go and sin no more, but check with your priest first, because you may not have sinned as badly as you thought. But I don't know. None of us really know what this means practically. And look, I made a rash prediction at the end of last year. And I did it on television during our New Year's show, and I said, my prediction is the Pope will change practice, if not doctrine, but it will have the same effect vis-a-vis communion for divorced and remarried Catholics.
Yeah.
He has essentially done that. He has opened the door here to an alteration in the way in which divorced and remarried people are invited back into the sacraments. The Germans are already doing this. The German church is euphoric today. They are already admitting people in without annulments. The question is, will this catch hold in other places, or does this further exacerbate tensions around the world?
It's
in the
a
Catholic
big deal.
Church and outside of it.
Raymond Arroyo, if I could swing back to the very first thing you said here, because I don't want it to be glossed over, and this is for our non-Catholics and also for our not properly catechized Catholics. You said that this is just a pastoral statement. This does not change church teachings. I think a lot of people hear that and they don't get it, because as far as they know, the Pope, he's infallible. When he says something, that means this is what the church believes.
He's only infallible if he says he's infallible, and this is not. That's not what's happening here in this document. To speak it's called ex cathedra, from the chair. That infallibility he has to proclaim up front. He didn't do it with this document.
So Raymond, help non-Catholics here. So if he's not saying I'm infallible on this, then he might be wrong about these things.
Well, that's exactly right. Look, the Pope here, here's what he's saying. This is his pastoral reflection on marriage. It is not a doctrinal document meant to change doctrine. But he is suggesting here a shift in the practice. Now, in my estimation, and this is my opinion is when you change practice, you do, in fact, change doctrine. But formally, he is not doing that. So one can't come away from this and say, look, I just met Susie. She's a lot hotter than the wife I'm with now, and I don't have 5 kids to go home to at the end of the day. Maybe Susie and I can go to church, and we'll feel good about it, and it'll be okay. That's not what this isn't a green light to sin, okay?
Right.
But at the same time, he's trying to have mercy and extend compassion to people in what he calls irregular situations. But how this plays on the ground and the burden this will place on the parish priest, every one of them essentially becomes the Pope, because they're going to have to evaluate if someone's in deep mortal sin or not on a case-by-case. That makes things very murky, and canon lawyers I talked to today say this will open up a nightmare for them.
And sadly, Raymond Arroyo, there are a lot of rogue priests out there who have their own agenda, and they will take this and run with it big time.
This is true. I think
especially here in America.
As I said, a lot of people will be unhappy with this.
Interesting.
Others will be excited by it. There are beautiful moments in this reflection. But at 256 pages, no one will read it. They'll read the headline, and my sense is they'll come away with more confusion than they will clarity.
Well, I'll tell you what people will read. Yeah. Will Wilder, The Relic of Perilous Falls. That is a new children's book by our guest, Raymond Arroyo, managing editor at EWTN News, who's going to have a very busy day. We appreciate you starting it with us,
Thank
sir.
you, Raymond. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks.
I listen to you all every morning.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, thanks, Raymond.
I thought being a Baptist was complicated.
Oh, you have no idea, my friend. Now try being a Catholic married to a Baptist.
Now that is complicated.
This is my life.
Yeah.